So have you thought about this question? Have you thought about diversity when it comes to religion? Tony Antonellis has a really fascinating book. It's For the Love of God, an approach to peace, coexistence, community, and truth. And he has such an interesting background, too. And we'll talk about that. He finished his high school. He was a tractor-trailer driver, a chef. He worked for a few years for Polaroid. Then he went to college where he majored in theology and later in social work. He graduates and he gets a master's. He studies at Bridgewater State University. And for 20 years, he worked with people with developmental disabilities and mental illness. We talk so much about that now. So, wow. And he's a father. He says his greatest treasure is his family. And it's that question that I said at the beginning that I think is so fascinating and his book really addresses. Tony, thanks for coming on Author's Corner with me, Kate Delaney, here on America Tonight.
Well, thank you, Kate, for the invite.
So tell me the road to the book. What made you write this book?
Well, I was raised Roman Catholic. Half of my childhood years in school were spent in Catholic day schools and also 3 years in Catholic boarding schools. And I enjoyed the religious involvement with my life, and of course, as a youngster, I had a good sense of awe of my Creator. And as I got older, I had acquired more and more questions, and became somewhat skeptical initially. And as I got to meet people from other religions, other Christian religions, and Judaism as well, I began to ask a lot of questions. And initially, I couldn't resolve the questions that I had. It was somewhat perplexing. And then one day, probably maybe 20 years or more ago, I acquired a book written by a Catholic priest by the name of Hans Kung. Hans Kung was a young priest who was involved with the Second Vatican Council. Brilliant scholar, author of 75 books at least, acquired probably a dozen or more doctorate degrees, honorary, from various theological institutions around the world for his clarity of mind. And as I got more familiar with his writings, I realized that I wasn't the only one that had this existential anxiety. And so for the last, couple decades, I've been asking myself questions. And I guess of late, I kind of recently came to the conclusion that it's really impossible to live a full life without some kind of religion. But it's not so much about being this religion or that religion, but it's about being intellectually honest with yourself and being open-minded, and what I like to refer to as humble orthodoxy, meaning I believe this, but I'm not 100% certain that I'm correct, so I keep an open mind. So if I, as a Christian, encounter a Muslim or a Buddhist who has different ideas, then I want to entertain those ideas and see what measure of truth these people have to offer. In that way, we can share a common faith, even though we're not all the same. And it's that way, in life in general. Not everybody is politically the same point of view. Not everybody is, has the same philosophies on diet or this or that. And it's important that we can respect one another and work together. And that's what my book is about. And actually, after I read the book, I realized that there was really more to say about it, so I'm working on a subsequent one.
I love that. We'll talk about that in a second, but I like how you say keep an open mind, right? Humble orthodoxy, that's the hashtag. You talk about old religions, ancient religions, where there was so much superstition and it wasn't quite flushed out or developed as you talk about. But you say that doesn't mean it's evil. You talk about that it just means that they were also more in tune with nature, just like you feel indigenous people are today, correct?
That's correct. One of the first things that really hit me really strongly, my sister, who recently passed away, she was 90 years old. She was a lot older than me. But she was a member of a Baptist church locally, and she invited my mom and myself to her church one Sunday to hear Jews for Jesus, who were a guest speaker there. And I got to meet this gentleman. His name was Rich Nichols. He was the rabbi overseeing Ruach Israel, which at that time I think was meeting in Newton, Massachusetts. And I was absolutely fascinated by the things he had to say. First of all, he wasn't really a Christian like most Christians are. He was a Jew. He celebrated the Sabbath on Friday night. They had a Sabbath service on Saturday. On Sundays, to honor the Christian aspect of his faith, they would get together for study and fellowship and things. So my mother, myself, my niece, my sister, we all started participating in this Jews for Jesus services. And years later, when I took a course at Harvard, I started going to the Harvard Hillel, where I met many Jewish friends and became friends with the modern Orthodox rabbi, Avi Weinstein, a brilliant man who had been trained in yeshiva in Israel. And he asked me the $56,000 question, Tony, what interested you in Judaism? And I said, Jews for Jesus. And he looked at me with a strange look. And one of the elders of the synagogue looked at him and he said, I never thought of it that way. In other words, a lot of Jews from mainstream Judaism see Jews for Jesus as yet another ploy to pull Jews out of the synagogue and bring them to church, right? But in my case, it took me out of the church, brought me to the synagogue. On another day, also at Harvard Hillel, a young undergraduate came into the study where the rabbi was with a number of us, and he said, Avi, is Jesus the Messiah? And I said, Lord, thank you for letting me be here to hear this. Right? Now, this is an Orthodox rabbi, right? And this is what he says to him. He says, we don't know. He could be. He said, but we need to be faithful Jews in the meantime. I said, that's terrific.
Yeah, and this is what your book talks about. What do you hope people take away from reading your book, Tony?
I hope, my prayer is that all of us, with our diversities of nationality, of race, of religion, that we would come to realize that the Creator, whoever the Creator may be, desired to make us as we are, and that we should learn to live with one another in peace. And that just as one of my Jewish friends pointed out, the first Jew, Abraham, was a convert to Judaism, a convert from paganism. So virtually all Jews are converts from paganism. Judaism did not evolve full-blown as it is today. I mean, it started being somewhat polytheistic with ethical roots, and it developed over time. I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that Jesus of Nazareth had more in common with the Pharisee Hillel than he did with the Essenes or the early church fathers. That's why we have to look at our religious roots and see them for what they are. For example, God did not write the Bible nor did he write the Quran. The Quran was written by pious individuals who wanted to share their faith and the things that were on their heart. So God was the inspiration for the writing, but he wasn't the author. And that's why when we look at these books, we need to respect them for what they are and not make them out to be more than they are.
So well said. We have 1 minute left. So next book is how can we live better, something like that. How can we make life better? And that's and there you delve into politics, right?
Yes. What I try to do is point out that theology is an essential part of everybody's life, whether one is an atheist or not, because you have to have a philosophy to live by, and that philosophy defines us and the way we live. So we need to look at politics, and we need to look at business and how we conduct our lives. In other words, we don't want to live by greed, nor do we want to live by violence and totalitarianism. So one of the things I do in the book, which is not the major point, but I compare the Chinese Communist Party to the Roman Catholic Church. If Hans Kung was still alive, I think he would love it, because he once conveyed the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, formerly known as the Inquisition. He compared them to the KGB.
You got to love it. That's going to be a good one, too. But pick this book up, For the Love of God, An Approach to Peace, Coexistence, Community, and Truth. Tony Antonellis, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you and stay well.
Strangely still, not a sound, not a bird outside.